Welcome to this deep dive on 21 lessons for the 21st century. Looks like you're really wrestling with some big questions about the future, and you've given us a great collection of sources to work with. So today we're going to explore Yuval Noah Harari's take on the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for humanity. What does Harari see as the biggest threats facing us in the 21st century? Well, he argues that the liberal story, the narrative that's guided much of the world for the past few centuries, is starting to crumble. And unlike in the past, there isn't a clear alternative just waiting in the wings. This leaves us in a state of uncertainty, grappling with new realities without a roadmap for the future. One of the most significant forces shaping this new reality is, of course, technology. And Harari doesn't just focus on the usual concerns about AI taking our jobs. He goes deeper, suggesting that the real danger lies in the potential for algorithms to understand our desires better than we do ourselves. Think about it. Imagine algorithms that can analyze your online behavior, your purchasing habits, even your facial expressions to predict your wants and needs before you're even aware of them. This kind of deep understanding could lead to unprecedented levels of manipulation, shaping our choices, our beliefs, and even our political views. Now let's talk about the potential for mass unemployment. It's not just some abstract fear anymore, it's a looming reality. And guess what? Our current social and political models are about as prepared for this as a rowboat in a tsunami. Harari suggests universal basic income as one possible solution, but acknowledges that it's not a silver bullet. What about countries that rely heavily on cheap labor? What happens to their economies when robots take over the textile factories and call centers? It's a whole new world of global inequality waiting to explode. And here's where things get even more interesting. The shift in authority from humans to algorithms. It's not just about losing jobs. It's about who gets to make the decisions that shape our lives. Think self-driving cars making life-or-death choices in a split second, or AI systems controlling our social media feeds, potentially shaping our perceptions of reality. Harari argues that this shift in authority might actually expose free will as nothing more than a comforting illusion. After all, our feelings, our gut instincts, those are just calculations happening in our brains below the level of conscious awareness. And what if computers become far more efficient at making those calculations than we are? This brings us to Harari's analysis of political upheavals, where he explores the tension between nationalism and the need for global solutions. He highlights this fascinating paradox. Humans are wired for loyalty to small tribal groups, not millions of strangers, yet we live in a world dominated by nation-states, these vast imagined communities. Now, Harari isn't saying that nationalism is inherently bad, but he argues that it can become a dangerous distraction when it comes to the existential threats facing humanity, threats like nuclear war, ecological collapse, and yes, the disruptive power of technology. These are global problems that demand global solutions. He uses some really striking examples to drive home this point. For instance, he points out that even something as seemingly simple as organizing the Olympic Games would be an absolute nightmare without a shared set of rules and a global political framework to enforce them. Think about it, thousands of athletes from all over the world competing in dozens of different sports, all governed by a single set of regulations. It's a testament to the power of global cooperation, even in the face of national differences and rivalries. So in a world where technology is advancing at an exponential rate, and the challenges we face are increasingly global in nature, Harari asks a crucial question. Are nation-states still up to the task? Or are they becoming increasingly irrelevant in the face of climate change AI and the threat of nuclear annihilation? Welcome back to our deep dive into Yuval Noah Harari's 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. In this part, we're going to tackle a question that's more relevant than ever. How do we discern truth and justice in a world just overflowing with information, noise, and competing narratives? Harari argues that we are living in what some call the post-truth era, where objective facts seem to matter less than ever before. But he pushes back against this idea a little bit, suggesting that propaganda and misinformation have always been with us, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Think about it for centuries. Rumors, myths, and biased accounts have shaped public opinion, often with devastating consequences. What's different now is the sheer volume and speed at which information spreads. Social media algorithms can amplify even the most outlandish claims, creating echo chambers, where people are only exposed to information that confirms their existing biases. Harari argues that our sense of justice, honed over millennia to deal with small-scale face-to-face interactions, is simply not equipped to handle the interconnected complexities of the modern world. For example, let's take a look at the global supply chain. Your smartphone, your clothes, the food on your table, all of these products are the result of a vast network of interconnected systems spanning continents and involving countless individuals. But how can we ensure ethical practices throughout this complex chain? How can we even begin to assess the environmental and social impact of our consumer choices? It's a mind-boggling dilemma, and our traditional ethical frameworks, which often focus on individual responsibility and clear lines of cause and effect, struggle to provide adequate guidance. Harari dives deeper into this idea by using a thought-provoking example from history, a postmaster in Nazi Germany. This ordinary person tasked with delivering the mail is suddenly faced with a moral dilemma. What if the letters contain government propaganda promoting hatred and violence? Do they have a moral obligation to open the mail, potentially risking their own safety to disrupt the flow of misinformation? It's easy to judge in hindsight, knowing the horrific consequences of the Nazi regime. But in the moment, without the benefit of knowing the future, such moral choices are incredibly difficult. Harari's point is that in a world of interconnected systems and complex consequences, even seemingly small actions can have ripple effects that extend far beyond our immediate circle. This raises a fundamental question. How can we act ethically when we can't possibly grasp the full extent of our actions' impact? Adding another layer of complexity is the issue of power and how it distorts our perception of reality. Harari uses a powerful analogy comparing those in positions of authority to black holes, massive objects whose gravitational pull warps space and time around them. The closer you get to a black hole, the more distorted your perception of reality becomes. Similarly, those who are close to centers of power, whether political, economic, or social, are often caught in a bubble of information and influence that shapes their understanding of the world. He illustrates this concept with a personal anecdote about attending a dinner with a world leader. Everyone in the room, he observed, was trying to impress the great man, carefully curating their words and actions to fit the image he projected. No one dared to challenge his views or present alternative perspectives. It's a poignant reminder that power creates a kind of information bubble, distorting the flow of truth and limiting the range of perspectives that reach those in positions of authority. And this problem, Harari argues, is only going to get worse as the world becomes increasingly complex. Leaders, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information they need to process, are forced to rely on advisors and experts, creating a feedback loop where those in power become increasingly isolated from the lived realities of ordinary people. Here's where the true danger of AI lies, according to Harari, not in some Hollywood-style robot uprising, but in the potential for what he calls natural stupidity to be amplified by increasingly sophisticated algorithms. Imagine a world where leaders cut off from the real world make decisions based on data that's been carefully curated, filtered, or even manipulated to fit a particular narrative. It's a recipe for disaster on a global scale. So what can we do? In a world where truth feels elusive and our traditional ethical frameworks are struggling to keep pace with the complexity of the challenges we face, where do we turn for guidance? This is where Harari's exploration, resilience, meaning-making, and the potential for what he calls escaping the matrix becomes particularly relevant. He argues that the most valuable skill we can teach our children in the 21st century isn't coding or data analysis, but the ability to deal with change, to embrace uncertainty, and to cultivate a resilient mindset. In a world of constant disruption, the ability to adapt, to learn, and to bounce back from setbacks will be more crucial than ever before. And here's where Harari challenges one of the fundamental tenets of modern Western thought, the idea of individual freedom and the pursuit of happiness. This narrative, which he calls the liberal story, has been incredibly influential in shaping our values and our aspirations. But he asks a provocative question. Are we truly free to choose our beliefs, our desires, our identities? Or are we simply products of our biology, our environment, and the cultural narratives that shape our understanding of the world? To illustrate this idea, he uses a brilliant example from popular culture, the Pixar film Inside Out. The film depicts a young girl's emotions, joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust as adorable characters vying for control of her mind. It's a playful metaphor, but it highlights a profound truth. Our emotions, our thoughts, our very sense of self are shaped by forces that operate beneath the level of conscious awareness. And if we're not aware of these forces, how can we claim to be truly free? Harari suggests that meditation could be a key to navigating this complex inner landscape. He describes his own experience with Vipassana meditation, a practice that involves observing your breath, your bodily sensations, and your thoughts without judgment. Through this practice, he discovered that the deepest source of his suffering wasn't external events, but the patterns of his own mind, the constant craving, aversion, and anxiety that kept him trapped in cycles of dissatisfaction. And here's the really interesting part. By simply observing these patterns without trying to change them or judge them, he found that they began to lose their grip on him. It's like he was able to step outside the matrix of his own mind and see it for what it was, a collection of thoughts and emotions, not the ultimate truth of his being. Harari argues that in an age where algorithms are constantly trying to understand and predict our desires, developing this kind of self-awareness is essential for retaining control of our lives. By understanding how our minds work, we can begin to break free from the influence of those who seek to manipulate us, whether it's through targeted advertising, political propaganda, or social pressure. He cautions, however, against seeking out special experiences or states of bliss in meditation. The true power of meditation, he suggests, lies in observing reality as it is without judgment or expectation. Even the most mundane sensations, the feeling of your breath, the warmth of the sun on your skin, become profound and mysterious when you approach them with a sense of open curiosity. But what about meaning? If we're not finding it in the traditional narratives of religion nationalism, or even the pursuit of individual happiness, where do we turn? Harari delves into the power of stories, arguing that even though they might be fictional, they provide us with a sense of identity, purpose, and connection. Think about the way we imbue everyday objects. Flags, religious icons, even sports jerseys with symbolic meaning. These objects become totems representing something larger than themselves, connecting us to a shared history, a shared set of values, a shared sense of belonging. He even uses the example of the Indian government's investment in massive flags, arguing that these symbols serve a deeper purpose than just national pride. They make the idea of India, this vast and diverse nation, feel real and tangible in a way that, say, building sewage systems in Delhi's slums might not. It's a fascinating insight into the power of rituals, symbols, and shared narratives to shape our collective reality. He also explores the idea of sacrifice and how it binds us to our beliefs. Whether it's fasting during Ramadan, abstaining from work on the Sabbath, or even just spending a fortune on a designer handbag, the more we sacrifice for something, the more real and valuable it becomes in our minds. But Harari doesn't shy away from the darker side of this human need for belief. He points out that throughout history, stories have been used to justify violent suppression and even genocide. We're all susceptible to the allure of simple narratives, especially when they offer us a sense of belonging, purpose, and meaning in a world that can often feel chaotic and confusing. He reminds us that we're all living in a kind of matrix, a world constructed from the stories we tell ourselves and each other. But here's the twist. Escaping this matrix is a lot more challenging than simply swallowing a red pill. Harari argues that to truly escape the matrix, we need to escape our own selves, to break free from the narrow definitions of who we are and what we believe. This is where the true challenge of the 21st century lies, not in conquering the external world, but in understanding and mastering the inner world of our own minds. It's a journey that requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world around us. So how do we actually escape the matrix? What does a life beyond the limitations of our self-constructed narratives look like? We'll explore these questions in the final part of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive into Yuval Noah Harari's 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. We've covered a lot of ground exploring everything from the looming threat of technological disruption to the challenges of finding truth and meaning in a world of information overload. But here's the question that keeps popping up. How do we actually escape the matrix? What does it look like to break free from the limiting narratives that shape our perceptions and our choices? Now, Harari doesn't offer a simple 10-step program or a guaranteed path to enlightenment, and that's actually quite refreshing. Instead of peddling easy answers, he encourages us to become more conscious, more aware, and more engaged with the complexities of the world around us. He emphasizes the importance of cultivating a resilient mindset, the ability to adapt, learn, and bounce back from setbacks in a world of constant change. Think of it as mental and emotional agility training for the 21st century. He argues that the most valuable skills we can develop aren't necessarily technical skills like coding or data analysis. Those are important, of course, but they're not enough. What we really need are the skills of critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and the ability to navigate uncertainty and ambiguity. It's like he's saying, forget about trying to predict the future. Instead, focus on building the inner resources you'll need to thrive no matter what the future throws at you. And here's another key point. Harari reminds us that we're not in this alone. As much as technology can be isolating, it also offers incredible opportunities for connection, collaboration, and community building. He uses the example of Facebook, which, despite its many flaws, has connected billions of people around the world, creating new forms of social interaction and allowing for the sharing of information and ideas on an unprecedented scale. The challenge, as Harari sees it, is to harness the power of technology for good, to create online spaces that foster empathy, understanding, and meaningful connection. It's about using technology to build bridges, not walls. But perhaps the most profound message in Harari's book is the call to embark on an inner journey, to explore the landscapes of our own minds and hearts with curiosity and courage. He suggests that practices like meditation, mindfulness, and self-reflection can be powerful tools for developing this inner awareness. It's about learning to observe our thoughts and emotions without judgment, to understand the patterns that shape our perceptions and behaviors, and to cultivate a deeper sense of presence and acceptance. It's a journey that requires honesty, vulnerability, and a willingness to let go of old beliefs and embrace new perspectives. But as Harari suggests, it's a journey that can lead to a more authentic, more fulfilling, and more meaningful life. So as we wrap up this deep dive into 21 lessons for the 21st century, I'm left with a sense of both urgency and possibility. The challenges we face are real and the stakes are high. But we also have incredible resources at our disposal: technological tools, scientific knowledge, and perhaps most importantly, the power of human ingenuity and collaboration. The question is, are we willing to do the work both individually and collectively to create a future where technology empowers us, where political systems serve the common good, and where our stories inspire us to build a more compassionate and more sustainable world? That's the challenge Harari leaves us with, and it's one that deserves our deepest attention and our most creative efforts. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. I hope it's given you a better understanding of Harari's insights and some food for thought as you navigate this complex and rapidly changing world.